proud to be local.
Yes, we are proud to be local, and this is a very local story, and we've had a bit of a laugh about it here this morning, I must admit. Well, geckos shoulder backpacks for a trip to Mana Island. Now, it's been suggested that they most probably got some sandwiches, a torch, most probably a tent, and something else. So we thought we'd better find out the real story from Lee Barry, the Community Ranger, Kapiti-Wellington DOC, and she's on the telephone line. Good morning, Lee.
Good morning, Nigel.
Well, are we far off the queue as to giving them a backpack with a sandwich or two and a drink bottle, or are we miles away from...
They might be hiding those things in their tiny backpacks. The main thing they've got in there is a radio transmitter.
Ah, right. So it's a research project, is it, to find out where these geckos go to once they're released on the island? Yeah,
that's right. So there's a whole lot of geckos that have been on Mana Island previously released, translocated from Belmont Quarry down in Wellington, and they've been housed in a big open-air pen for a year or two. And the research study is to look at what happens when you release geckos without the big open-air pen, and when you use the open-air pen, and see if we can get the population to stick together a little bit more,
right,
so that they're more successful in creating a breeding population.
So what sort of weight are these transmitters? I mean, they must be fairly light, are they?
They are tiny, tiny wee things, yeah. So they weigh less than a gram, so about 0.7 of a gram, and they sit kind of quite flush with the gecko's backs. They're quite stylish-looking little things, actually, kind of black, very Wellington, very fashionable.
Oh, right. Okay, so, I mean, how did you fix them onto the geckos, though? I mean, that must be a job and a half.
Yeah, it's quite delicate work, actually. The researchers who are involved really take their time. They're attached with sort of self-adhesive tape, a little like first aid tape, something that's really soft. The geckos are quite delicate creatures, and the radio transmitters only stay on for about 6 weeks. So
I see.
We really need just enough adhesion to get them to stay put,
right,
and to make sure they don't impede the gecko's movements. These are a type of forest gecko. They're called naheri, and they generally hang out on trees and in the canopy. So they're not the kind of geckos that kind of go scrambling in between rocks or into little gaps and things. So the transmitters don't really get in their way, but obviously we want to make them as least impact on the animal as possible while we're studying them.
All right, so that's something we'll learn. It's not the ground geckos, it's the tree geckos, is it?
It is, yep. These guys live up in the trees. They're typically found in kind of older, mature forests.
Yes.
They're not seen that often because they tend to kind of bask in sunny patches right up on the top of the canopy. So, they're beautiful things, actually. If you check out the DOC website, you'll see some pictures of them. They're stunning creatures. So
what colour would they be? Disguised, I suppose, so they're not attacked by predators?
Yeah, they're a range of kind of greeny, grey. Sometimes they've got some yellow in them. They're quite well camouflaged, so they blend into tree bark and canopy, yeah. Now,
do we know whether they're male or female geckos? Can you tell that or not?
You can tell that. The ones that we've transmitted, I think they're a reasonably even mix.
Yeah.
We couldn't be too selective about males and females just because we had to kind of use as many animals as possible. And the last bunch that were salvaged from Belmont Quarry, we only got about 9 or 10 of them. And so to make a robust study, we kind of had to use all of them rather than kind of picking and choosing about males and females. But you're right, the investigation will be quite interesting as to where and how far males and females move, again, to ensure that we get that successful breeding population when we move them to new sites and new homes.
So do they mate at a special time of the year or certain time of the year, or is it if you find a female or a male, you go for it?
I don't know, actually. That's a very good question. It is a very good question.
You might find out with this research.
We might do. There's relatively few of these guys left. They're considered to be an at-risk declining species.
Oh.
So they're not hugely common. They're kind of the fourth worst, if you like, in the kind of threat status.
Yes.
So I would say that they take the chances where they can.
Yeah, fair enough too. All right, so these transmitters are on for several weeks, and then you'll get the transmitters back and decode what's been put in there.
Yeah, that's right. So what the researchers are doing, they're over on Manor Island, pest-free Manor Island, kind of full time for 6 weeks, and they radio track them in real time.
Yeah.
So they go out every night and every day and take the position of the animals. So they're working out in real time exactly how far they're moving from their release site.
Good. These geckos lose their tails. I mean, when we were kids, we used to put the geckos in a bucket of water and they'd lose their tails. Do they do that these days or not?
Geckos do, yeah, they do. So that's their defence mechanism. They'll drop their tails when they're threatened by a predator usually, and what you'll notice, of course, is that little tail keeps moving. The idea is that distracts the predator or whatever's trying to eat the gecko and gives it a chance to get away. They generally do regrow them, but it's obviously pretty stressful for an animal to lose that much of its body. So that's where, handling them really gently comes into play. And I'm pretty sure these ones were all intact when they were sent out there with their transmitters.
Gosh, as kids, we could have been had up for abuse of animals, couldn't we?
You probably could have.
Oh, dear. All right, so it'll be interesting to find out exactly what happened. So you'll have that research results in due course.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Yeah, it's part of a study that a student from Otago University is involved in. So, as soon as she gets all the academic sign-off, the Department of Conservation Lizard Management Group will be using this to inform, their management practices for threatened lizard species all over the country.
Great. Hey, Lee, that's an interesting little chat this morning, so best of luck, and I'll be ringing you again to find out what you've found out about these geckos. Tree geckos, never heard of them before. I've only known the ground ones. So,
very happy to share it with you. Glad we could give you some extra information.
Thanks very much indeed. There we are. There's something I didn't know about. Lee Barry, she's a community ranger from the Kapiti-Wellington DOC, and they've got these little transmitters on these tree geckos. That's where you find them. So, we'll get back to Lee in about a couple of months' time and find out what they've found out about these geckos.
106.3 Beach FM.